Minnesota Pubcast. Live on location at Bennett's. We don't belong here. What are we doing here? Oh, yeah. Post Wild Wednesday. What up, Jeff?
It's your show.
Oh, I'll get you guys mic'd up, too. Yeah, there you go. Hey, how you guys doing?
What's up?
What's up, sir?
We got Jeff Dubay. We got Tony Dean from the Wild Wednesday show. It's an Alive and Social collaboration. We are, like I said, we're down at Bennett's on West 7th. Bennett's Rail and Chop House. Get down here for the food. But tonight, I brought these guys in because Molly is in Arizona, where it's probably about 90 degrees today, or it was.
Is she ever here?
Yeah, she's here. She's here more often than you would think. But she's out this week, so I brought you guys in today. Tomorrow, I'll let you know right now. I'm going to start out the show with I'll be at O'Gara's, but I'm going to have Jim Suhan by phone, live from the X, because he's covering the Wild. We'll talk Wild, we'll talk Twins, we'll talk Vikings, and then I also will have Molly by phone. So you will get your fix. You will get some Molly Burke this week. But I wanted to start out. I know you two could talk about anything, and we will, and this may or may not be in a full hour-long show. I know you guys just did a show, so that's totally fine if it's not. And now I'm doing your hand thing that you were doing the last show, Jeff. But
got to be animated.
Turnabout.
Yeah, turnabout is fair play, right? But I wanted to bring you on, Jeff, and ask you an interesting question. Now, we Molly and I talked about this last week on the show. I saw an interview on Bill Maher, and the guy's name was it's Johan Hari or Johan Hari. And this guy has a theory. He's a British. I don't even know exactly what his title is. I think he's some kind of a doctor, or he's at least studied this stuff. But it's about drug addiction. And Jeff, I don't want to take this in a weird way where it puts you in an awkward position, but I think that you could comment on this. And what this guy said, well, actually, I'm going to play what he said. I'll give you a little bit more of the background on it, too, once we get going. But here, I'll just play the bit, and you guys will react.
What are the implications of this for society if you're saying that heroin is not what we thought it was and people can do it recreationally?
There are huge implications, firstly, for the drug war, right? The drug war is based on the idea that the chemicals cause the addiction, therefore we need to physically eradicate the chemicals from the face of the earth. If actually the vast majority of people who use these chemicals don't become addicted, if in fact you've got to have a whole other thing going on, it makes sense to wage war on that thing. What we do is we actually make the real cause of addiction worse. We take addicts who are addicts because they're isolated and cut off, and we cut them off and isolate them more. In the year 2000, Portugal had the worst drug problem in Europe. 1% of the population was addicted to heroin. It was mind-blowing. And every year they tried the American way, and every year the problem got worse and worse. So they got together, and then they got a panel of scientists and doctors and said, look, tell us what will genuinely solve this. And the panel came back and said, decriminalize everything, from cannabis to crack, everything. But, and this is the crucial next step, take all the money we used to spend on arresting drug users, imprisoning drug users, all of that, take that and spend it on really good drug treatment. And it's not drug treatment like we think of it in the US. Some of it is like rehab. Mostly it's about reconnecting addicts with society. Things like subsidized jobs. Say you used to be an addict. When you're ready, they'll go to a garage and they'll say, if you employ this guy as a mechanic for a year, we'll pay half his wages. The goal was to make sure that every addict in Portugal wakes up with something to do in the
This is going to be a bit of a tough sell for the Republican Congress.
But
to give money to drug addicts?
All right, so first of all, did you have an instant reaction to that, to what he just said?
Oh, I agree, but I on some points. I have no history with opiates. But he was talking about heroin.
He started with heroin, yeah.
And I mean, I've always been taught that heroin is extraordinarily physically addictive. I mean, and anybody who saw the movie Ray, you see what it's like when somebody's coming out of a heroin high, whatever. But I will say this: I don't feel like I was ever physically addicted to crack cocaine. I agree that it's the behaviors and the psychology of it that separates you from society and labels you as an addict and kind of entrenches you in that lifestyle. Like if I wasn't using crack cocaine, I didn't have physical symptoms that, boy, I better get this into my body or I'm going to be dope sick.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like that at all. It's the best way I can describe the addiction was the morning after the first time I ever tried it was waking up thinking, wow, I'm fucked now that I know about this. What am I going to do now that I know how amazing this is? And I mean, I know that sounds really like a shitty thing to say, but that's how you feel day number one or day number two. After a year, it's not, boy, that's amazing. It's like, well, this is the fucking worst thing in the world.
No, you're just chasing it, right?
Yeah. But I mean, but at the time, that's how you feel. And it's not a matter of waking up dope sick and needing to get it into your system to not be sick. It's a matter of that was really an amazing rush, and I need to experience that again. And it is to me it is psychological. To me it's not as physical. At least with that substance, with the stimulants like that. And if you were able to, in a socially acceptable way, occasionally dabble like you did with drinking, I think for most people it would run its course. You get sick of it and you'd move on, and your life wouldn't have been turned upside down and ruined in the process. Well, mine was. My life was trashed.
Well, and I preface all of this by saying that
when I say move on, I think you'd get sick of it and be done with it, and it would be a closed chapter in your life. And then you'd still have your job and your reputation, your livelihood, and you wouldn't have to start your whole life over again.
Sure. All right. And I just want to I preface this by saying the reason I bring this up, Tommy Mischke used to always say abortion, gun control, and whatever else was he always had these three topics that he'd always joke, after the break we'll come back and abortion and drunk, and this is a topic that for the most part I'm not going to change anybody's mind on. You think legalization is okay or you don't, and I don't really give a shit whether you do or not. But what I find interesting about this is that this just resonated with me. It made sense that it's not just drugs that make people addicted to drugs. People are in a situation that sends them to drugs in the first place, and then because they're in such a bad situation to begin with, it becomes the downward spiral where you fall into drugs and you can call it addiction.
Yeah.
And what this guy was saying is he talks about how many people go in for surgery and are given medical grade heroin for 3-4 days afterward because of the pain, but they don't come out and they're not shaking and going, oh my god, I need my fix.
Right.
And he talked about people coming back from Vietnam too, and all these guys were doing heroin over in Vietnam. Vast majority of them did not come over here and were still addicts. So I just find it fascinating, and I've always said with your situation, Jeff, if I went through what you went through, I would have done at least what you did. And again, it's not about the drug. It's just you had a crazy fucking experience happen in your life,
right?
And you went, I need to get away from this. Yeah. And then once you got there, would you say that what he's kind of saying is true too? That once you are an addict, you're only pushed further and further away from society.
Right.
You're just we just make it worse and worse. We don't ever try to help, and the way we do is it's just here's some treatment, which is get you off the drugs.
Well, here's a couple of things on that. There is no war on drugs in this country. There's a war on drug addicts. It's really misguided. I mean, it's no one's trying to eradicate drug problems. I think they are attacking drug addicts, and I think it's misguided. But secondly, I've been to treatment 3 times, and not one of them addressed the issues. And God bless AA. And I understand what they're doing, and I get it. I mean, you're back in the in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. Alcoholism killed people, and there was no way out of it. And they found this way to eradicate the guilt in your life by making all the amends on all the things you've done wrong and feeling better about yourself. And by taking these actions, it changed how you felt, and it changed your behaviors about drinking. I understand, and I know I just I'm sure I sold the program short a little bit in that little nutshell, but that doesn't work. They say it works for anything. It doesn't work for anything. Because the reason people do crack cocaine, the reason people do methamphetamine, the reason they do these stimulants is because it is a sexual turn-on, and they are having freakish sex with no strings attached. And I'm not kidding. It's what it's about. Wow. It's why it's why crystal meth is an epidemic in the gay community, because people shoot up and they go insane with lust.
I had never heard that until Jeff said it, but that makes sense.
It's all it is. If somebody tells you they're using crack cocaine and it's not sexual, they are lying to you.
And I would say that that's just one part of it. I have a pretty unique perspective on it, just because my day-to-day occupation, I deal with people in crisis, and I think a lot of times people are in crisis, and then drug addiction comes. People are in crisis, and they use drugs to numb themselves from dealing with the underlying stuff.
Some of them,
and I think that everybody has a different reason for becoming susceptible, for having their life get detoured, for not being able to process. Because I think a lot of the smartest people know that you have to identify and process the shame that comes from being isolated,
right.
that comes from being in a place where you're vulnerable, where you're not able to move past traumas in your life, and stuff that creates this void of feeling normal, of feeling secure, of feeling safe, so it's an interesting topic.
I can promise you something. Let me promise you. I mean, this is an ironclad guarantee. Nobody smokes crack or shoots dope. Nobody injects meth into their veins or smokes crack without having sex or masturbating. And I promise you that is true. And that is 100. I know that's a little vulgar, but that is 100% true. Nobody will take a needle of methamphetamine and shoot it in their arm unless they're going to have sex or watch porn and jerk off for 12 hours. And I'm not kidding about that.
Well,
it sounds like a joke, but it's not. But that is 100% true.
That's from a guy's perspective, though.
Well, women too. Trust me, I've been around this block.
Sure, and it's an underworld.
It's no joke.
But I also,
people who smoke methamphetamine sometimes do it to be productive and focused. That's different. But if you take a needle and you stick it in your arm, that's not heroin, methamphetamine. You are having sex or you are masturbating.
But to bring that back to the point then here too, though, then that doesn't necessarily become about the drug. It's become kind of a culture thing. Like now you have a group of people that are coming together around this drug, and again, it's because they're pushed away from
Speaker's
society.
Still on in here?
No, God, no. Fuck no. I turned that down for the pubcast. We don't do the pubcast live, or not for the crowd that's in the building anyway.
Right, I know what you're saying. I'm telling you, that is a guarantee. What I just said to you is it has no exceptions.
But
nobody smokes crack. Nobody smokes crack to just chill. No,
I mean
trust me.
But that's from your perspective, though, because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of homeless. I don't know. I would just. I guess the way that I view it, and from my experience, right? Because I come from an Irish Catholic family. Alcoholism rampant. I come from Sherburne Avenue. I grew up on Sherburne Avenue, where they sold a great majority of the crack during the 80s and the 90s. Right? I'm a St. Paul kid. I went to St. Paul Central High School. I worked in the jail for 5 years. I work in law enforcement now. And the way that I view it, right? Anybody that is currently using methamphetamine, heroin, crack cocaine, their life is in crisis.
Yes.
And
I agree.
It's a bigger picture.
I absolutely agree with that.
And beyond the substance use, there's underlying stuff that's taking place. Whether it's traumas, whether it's brain injuries, whether it's just a lifetime of just unaddressed mental health stuff. My mother.
Keep going.
Right? Right? And so I think a lot of times we get frustrated with people for their shortcomings, right? How come you can't not do this, right? But we're not giving them credit for the fact that they're damaged and they're vulnerable.
Or worse, we just blame it on the drug itself.
Yes.
And say it's so easy, just get them away from the drug.
And it's so unbelievable that somebody would smoke crack, right? But then you have these same people that would cast judgment that are, 5-6 drinks deep every day at 4:30, whether it's in their house, whether it's it's in a tavern or a bar. And so, the way that you can justify and you can separate alcoholism or functional alcoholism or social alcoholism away from doing other drugs, even marijuana. I mean, I think
there's
people
functional pot drugs,
I think people don't think that marijuana can create an addiction, where I definitely think it can, but the costs of the addiction are a lot different. You get pulled over in a car with marijuana and you have it doesn't derail your life.
Correct.
Like it does.
Correct.
When Jeff is going through his life stuff, and
that's
then
why not everything's the same. I mean, in treatment or in AA meetings, they want to tell you that every addiction is the same. Whether you're drinking, whether you're doing this, whether you're doing that, they're not the same. I'll tell you right now, the people sit at a corner bar, I don't want to use Bennett's as an example. It's a nice, clean family establishment, but people meet at a corner bar and sit and get plastered sitting at the end of the bar for different reasons than people get together and smoke crack cocaine. I mean, I promise you, they are different reasons.
Sure.
I mean, guys and gals. If somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, let's go have a couple beers," it's different than if a chick calls you up and says, "I got an 8-ball." And trust me, there's no doubt.
And even if you don't even necessarily go to the sexual part, but let's say heroin or something, it's still you don't just do heroin like you would to have a couple
I would
of beers.
imagine, but I know nothing.
I've never done it.
I know nothing about heroin. I really don't.
Well, it becomes a lifestyle too. I mean, once you're an addict, then you fall victim to the lifestyle of an addict. So you have to find more. You have to come up with money. You have to find people that have a similar set of priorities in their day, which is getting high, and then you fall victim to all different things. You get robbed by drug dealers. You get robbed by other addicts.
That's one of the big points he makes too. And and again, we don't need to make this about legalizing drugs, but it is interesting if you think about the impacts that we have. He says if you made milk illegal, there would, because you couldn't, it would still be a product in demand. People would want it, so it'd still be sold. So if somebody tries to steal your milk, you can't call the cops anymore, right? Because you're not supposed to be selling milk.
Yeah.
So now you got to protect it yourself. Now you got to buy guns to protect your milk.
It's a stick-up boy. It's a stick-up boy.
And it's whatever it
it's
is
an
with
industry.
Everything that you make illegal. I mean, even down to cigarettes in New York, where you get the guy killed and strangled by a cop. So what I want to talk about then next is, do you agree with this societal aspect of it, and that because the way I've always looked at it is I've always been totally for legalizing all drugs. I've been, ever since I was on KSDP, I would say this always on air, 50,000 watts, legalize all drugs. But I never had that next step where you could ever bring a politician or anyone who would actually implement this stuff into the conversation. And what this guy says, and I'm a former conservative Republican, then went libertarian, now I'm damn near anarchist, so I'm not a big government guy. I definitely went the other way.
The journey of McGovern.
Real quick right there. But my point being is that I like what this guy's saying, is that instead of just decriminalizing all the stuff, and the reason we can't do that in this country is because there's way too many jobs on the line. There are not necessarily millions, but there are hundreds of thousands of jobs just in trying to eradicate drugs on the streets. Cops, FBI, and all DEA, and all of that. So you can't just take that money away and then just put all those people out of work and also say, everybody go do all the drugs you want. So the solution that he says, and what Portugal did, and I think it's an interesting try, and Portugal's small, it's like a state here.
Sure.
They just said, screw it. We're going to take every dollar that we were spending in that and just put it into fixing the actual problem, which is that these people are isolated, which is that these people don't have jobs, that they're not educated, blah, 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 blah. And that's to me, a very liberal philosophy. But I think it might be the only way to sell the whole get rid of the war on drugs and also not fuck up society. I think that this might be a possible solution, and I'd love to hear what you guys think.
I have less an issue with the actual drug. I mean, obviously it's illegal, so you know the rules you're playing by. You know what I mean? I don't cry any tears for a drug dealer.
Oh no, when a drug dealer gets robbed, I don't feel badly for him. No.
What I think what people don't take into context is that people are victimized because of drugs that have nothing to do with the use of drugs. So you have people that become victims of carjackings. There's crime. I've had my house burglarized twice, and it was by career criminal type people that. Aggressive.
Wow.
Well, I know what you mean. I mean, like drug addicts who got to get a score and they got to get the fix, so they put the TV off and take it to a pawn shop.
And ultimately, right? I catch the guy that breaks into my house, and what he'll say to me is, I've been going for 2 weeks. I'm this. I would never hurt anybody. If there's somebody inside, I would have just left, right?
Right.
But I don't think there's very few people in the world that intend to cause great bodily harm or death on people. It's these small little choices that put you in a bad spot that create more small bad choices.
Sure.
So, I mean...
But I think the drugs being illegal in the first place are what put you on that path to begin with.
But being under the influence of drugs allows you the opportunity to not make great choices.
A friend of mine years ago, I didn't know him at the time, he's become a friend in recovery, and he will remain nameless. But he, on a 2-week crack binge, out of money, out of dope, robbed a bank just on a whim. No nothing. Just walked into a bank with a note. As a matter of fact, he walked into a bank with a note, walked out with the money, opened the bag in an alleyway. Ink blew up all over him, and he money ruined, everything ruined. So takes off his shirt, throws it in the garbage, puts on a clean shirt. He had a clean shirt underneath it. Went to the next bank, robbed the next bank. Went off and partied again for a couple of weeks, and then went and did 4 years in prison.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of sure. You don't make there are all kinds of ridiculous decisions being made.
And I understand exactly what you're saying, that people on drugs are dangerous. But I think that what we're missing here is that people don't.
Some are, not all.
Well, the vast majority aren't, because there are a ton of people on drugs right now in St. Paul.
I was never a danger to anybody.
Right.
I never stole a thing. If I didn't have any money, I went without.
And what I'm saying is, I think that the fact that they're illegal is where most of those problems come from. And I even would take this as far as have places where people can go safely under doctor guidance and in supervision do drugs.
Well,
and they would. They do it in Portugal right now.
Like a methadone clinic, almost.
Honestly,
sure.
and they're doing it in Portugal, and it's apparently working. And then you get off the drugs because what fucking fun is it to go sit in a room with a doctor and 3 other people and shoot up heroin? That sounds horrible.
Well, and I think any drug is going to lose its effectiveness on you over time. I quit crack cocaine because crack cocaine stopped working for me, and and that's what I'm saying. If you let something run its course without destroying the life of the person in the meantime, all I can do is speak of myself. My life got taken apart. It got destroyed by this, and I had to rebuild and I'm still rebuilding. But if I would have been allowed to have a life and let my issue run its course, I would have quit and just continue with my life. It would have just been, well, that was a little chapter. I'm done with that now. And it would have been nice if I could have done that without everything being torn down.
Well, I also think, you're speaking in the context of a neat, nice little box of a person. And being honest about it, what I know about adult life is people aren't just one thing; they're many things. So the same person that you would allow to use heroin, cocaine, whatever it is, under a plan where you're allowed to use drugs, that's also probably somebody's father. That's also probably somebody that works. So then it's like, under what context is it even appropriate?
Well, I start at the belief that 90% at least of the people that want to be doing that stuff are already doing it. So my point is
but I also have a hard time feeling bad for somebody that is creating this wreckage with people that are innocent of that situation. And I think, that's what you have to take into context.
Well, and to me, that becomes a crime.
Well,
when you start neglecting your children, now that is a crime.
Well, but it's also a crime that's hard to prove because, it's not illegal to be a terrible parent, but it has its effects. So you could be a functioning alcoholic, and you could one of your symptoms of drinking is you keep a clean house, but that doesn't make you a good parent, and you're creating like this wreckage in the kid's life. Or, we talked about methamphetamine. A lot of people that do methamphetamines have this like urge to just be OCD and just be clean. So then they have this like organized everything, and everything looks and appears from the outside to be in order, but really their world is chaos, and then they can only control the stuff like keeping a clean house or keeping a clean room.
It's hard to make blanket statements about that drug because one thing I learned, and I don't have a ton of experience with it, but it's not one drug. Methamphetamine is many different drugs.
Smart.
You can snort it, you can hot rail it, you can smoke it, you can inject it, and every single thing you do will give you a different high that will give you a different reaction. If you inject it into your veins, you will become ravenous sexually. Sure. If you smoke it, you will become OCD, attentive, focused, and full of energy. It's just you wouldn't think it's the same drug. And again, I have very limited experience in it.
Sure.
It's actually something I used sparingly to wean myself off of crack cocaine because I thought the effects of it were far weaker. But it's different for everybody.
And that's a great take. And I think the evolution of mental health treatment in concert with drug treatment, in concert with incarceration, especially in Minnesota, has changed a lot because. One, we have a drug court here, right?
Yeah,
where if your underlying issues
I was in it.
are drugs, right?
Yep.
Then maybe it's less about the criminal behavior and more about getting you mental health treatment or whatever whatever it takes to help you. Because nobody intends to end up something. Nobody's like, when I'm a teenager and I'm out drinking Busch Light on a golf course and, I get trashed and we laugh and fall down.
Wait to be a meth addict.
But here's the thing.
Yeah,
but you're talking about things.
Right. I'm going to be drinking a bottle of Kharkov and passing
but again,
out.
that's the whole point of this conversation is that life
Well,
leads you there. The drugs don't. Life does. Your life situation leads to it. That's my point.
This is an important point that I want to make. And I know, Tony, you're in law enforcement, and I was in the Ramsey County drug court with Judge Smith. There's two things I want to say. Like sometimes families of addicts or friends of addicts hope the addict gets caught, thinking that that's what it's going to take. I will tell you right now that getting yourself into the system and having legal issues is not a road to sobriety. It is a block to sobriety. It is a hurdle to sobriety. You do not want to be in the system. You do not want to be on probation. You do not want to be in drug court. Judge Smith's drug court was about consequences. It wasn't about solutions. It was not. It was not anything that could have ever helped or done me any good. And when I chose to opt out of it, Ramsey County found it in their wisdom to have Judge Smith become my sentencing judge. So she was already bitter at me. I'd left her program, and she slammed me. I mean, she gave me a year for a 5th degree with no priors. And so don't think that getting into the system is a road to sobriety. It is a hurdle to sobriety. Is an obstacle to sobriety. And I'm not saying try to skirt the law and get away with what you can, but going to treatment by your own volition, picking where you want to go, doing these things not because they're court mandated, but because they're good for you, is the way to get healthy.
And you know what's so interesting is it has to be a personalized thing, right? Because I think a lot of times the courts in Minnesota are viewed as providing all of these programs instead of doing a punishment. So, I mean, it's an individualized thing, right?
Well, drug court's all about punishment. I mean, she threw it at you.
Well, but that was your individual. Ultimately, that was your individual thing with it.
I kept screwing up. I kept testing positive.
And so, like, going forward, I think what we all realize is, right, no one person, no one drug addict, alcoholic, criminal, no one person has all of the same stuff going on.
That's true. That's you know what? There, you just nailed it. That's what's wrong with the treatment paradigm. They say, like, you sit down in treatment, and they say, look around the room. You're all the same. You all have the same problem. You're all going to have the same solution. And I'm sitting there.
That's blaming on the drug again, or the addiction.
It's ridiculous. And then I'm not saying the problem is. If you try to think that, no, I'm not just the same as this guy, then they come back at you thinking that you're better. And I'm like, no, I'm not better. But I was sitting here in treatment at the age of 41 as somebody who, through 39 years of his life, had never even smoked weed, all right? I mean, straight-laced, not even a social drinker, I mean, just a teetotaler for 39 years. And I'm sitting next to a kid who's 18 years old, who's been on meth since he was 7 or 8. He doesn't know what it's like to have a sober day as an adult. I mean, to me, I've spent 1% of 1% of my adult life high. This guy has spent 100% of his teen and adult life high. He said, I'm not saying I'm better than him. I'm saying I'm different than him. And my problem's different than him. 100%. And my solution's different than him. But no, in treatment, you're the same. Stop looking at differences. Stop looking for differences. Find out why. You'll look for similarities. But it's just a bunch of rhetoric. And that's what's wrong with treatment.
That's why I thought you were the epitome of what this guy was talking about.
Yeah,
because your life is what led to it. A situation that was so fucked up. Like I said, I would have been right there with you. I'd have been right next to you.
I think divorce sends a lot of people into this shit, to be honest with you.
Oh, sure. But loneliness. You had a divorce there's about 4 layers on top of divorce.
Yeah, it was a little unusual.
But I also think, too, what's so great about your story is that you have these extreme highs, you have these extreme lows, and then you're able to work through all of it. Because there's people that give up. There's people that
he's the exception.
But people think I'm doing better. Always think I'm doing better than I am. I mean, I'm sober. Well, but I'm not happy. I'm still.
You're obviously happier though because you are sober, right?
Yeah, of course. But I'm living hand to mouth.
But that's also a symptom of the isolation that comes with processing the shame and the realities of your situation. Because a lot of the problem, right? A lot of the reason people don't get the help before the bad thing happens is that there's nobody there that will either say, you know what, you're doing it and you need to fix it. Right? Or
the problem is you probably don't have anybody that cares about you in the first place. That's how you got there.
People get very good at hiding whatever it is that they want to hide from the world. I mean, that's very honest about it. I mean, if you ever go and find a relative passed away in their home, you have a very good chance to see how they were living in the last moments. And usually it doesn't match up to what they would tell you or what you would expect. Somebody super meticulous, somebody that keeps a clean house, if all of a sudden their house is a pigsty, then probably there was warning signs there that they were going through something that they, that some sort of intervention was needed. And I think there's people have different stuff. People grow up in homeless shelters. People grow up on Lake Minnetonka and end up addicts. I mean, everybody has a different life journey.
It's how you view life again, too. It's depression. What I'm talking about is depression. If you're depressed, you do drugs. Nobody that's super happy is shooting up crack or smoking crack or shooting up heroin.
It's how you process.
Not very happy.
Charlie Sheen seemed pretty happy, but he was doing it.
He seemed very happy.
He couldn't get enough hookers, though. That was his problem, winning. So he wasn't happy.
He was winning is what is going on.
Guys, I never thought this would take a half an hour. I plan on that going about 10 minutes. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to come back with a little something lighter, but still something that Molly and I talked about last week. Patrick, you know about this, but I want to get you guys' take on this, too.
But Molly, you're talking about the person, not the substance, right?
Right, no.
Thank God.
Speed does not do Molly. In either way. We'll be back. We're going to run right now.
I do want to do due diligence to the NCHC Frozen Face-Off, not just because they are a client of ours, but it is a fantastic event. And it is going to be at the Target Center. It's March 20th to 21st, and they've got some fantastic deals right now. Full session ticket packages for all 4 games start as low as $60, and they will have single game tickets going on sale February 23rd. You can call 1-888-9-AXSTIX, AXSTIX, or go to TargetCenter.com. Go to the Target Center box office. It's going to be a great event. They've also got this fan fest going on. They're going to have live bands. They're going to shut down part of First Ave there, and have bands on the street. We're going to be podcasting live. as part of the event. And if you are coming from out of town, which, obviously, the University of Minnesota is no longer in it, so most of the fans who come here are going to be traveling, whether it's from Grand Forks, St. Cloud, Duluth, Miami, of Ohio, Denver University, whatever, you're going to want a hotel room. And obviously, there's a wealth of hotel rooms in downtown Minneapolis. As great as a venue as the X was for these events, downtown Minneapolis has got so much more going on, so many more hotel rooms. And if you go to my Twitter account or my Facebook account, you will find a post or a tweet that shows the NCHC Frozen Face-Off coming March 20th, 21st, and where you can go to book discounted hotel rooms, because the NCHC got together with the Chamber of Commerce and the hotels and put together some packages where folks can get a break on hotel rooms. Just tell them you're coming for the NCHC Frozen Face-Off. But you'll see the link on my Twitter account and my Facebook account. Just click on it, and they'll lead you right to discounted hotels, which should be a fantastic, fantastic event.
Minnesota Pubcast, back with you. Live from Bennett's with Jeff Dubay and Tony Dean of Wild Wednesday. Well, Jeff Dubay, obviously, of the Jeff Dubay Show.
Of course.
AliveAndSocial.com. Get everybody, get all the shows. Like I said, Jim Suhan tomorrow night. Suhan Unfiltered. I'll have him on tomorrow night from O'Gare's, talking all things local sports. All right, guys, let's get away from the drugs. We're done with drugs for now.
Fine.
But I do want to...
Whatever, man.
Now, I'm assuming...
It's not me, it's him, right? It's not me.
Jeff, I know you're not the big movie buff these days, especially current movies.
Right.
You have not seen Boyhood, right?
No,
Tony.
I haven't even gone through it yet.
Boyhood.
I don't think you're allowed to download that ever. Like, I probably wouldn't download that with my ISP.
Boy.
I saw American Sniper. American Sniper.
Hey, you saw something that was nominated for something. Oh,
yeah,
that's good.
I saw it legally on the internet.
The guy that killed the American Sniper
Just convicted, right?
got life in prison.
Yep.
Congratulations. I hope it's terrible every single day for you.
I have a feeling it will be.
What if he's mentally ill?
Then I hope that
That's so mean.
That he doesn't realize how bad it is.
He's a battle fatigue vet, and you're a vet.
Yeah, I don't care, man, because that guy had a chance to help a lot of people, and
Yeah,
that
you're
guy
right.
cut his life out.
Dude, you're right.
And
I mean, you're right about that. I don't know if you're right about he should be locked up and
well, you know what?
Killed forever.
When you get to live and you
I'm not a bleeding
extinguish
heart.
you extinguish somebody's light like that, especially somebody that could have helped so many people.
A ton of people, yes.
I mean,
exponentially.
What you did,
he hurt a lot of people.
You cheated the world, man.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't disagree with that at all.
And it's selfish. You know, I don't.
And I'm no bleeding heart when it comes to to law and order. I'm a libertarian as well, and I can be kind of a stickler for shit.
You know, I root for the bad guy in movies sometimes. You know what I mean? But that's not real life. You don't have the actual wreckage. You know.
I mean, I'm no bleeding heart. I'm no. Let's mentally examine him and let's see if he's mentally sound. But I mean, sometimes there's legitimate mental illness, and where I do take sympathy is typically with people who have been in battle fatigue, because that fucks you up. I mean, you're a Marine.
Yeah.
But have some fucking sympathy.
Look what a mess you are. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
did you see Action? I mean, I'm not trying to be a dick. Did you see Action as a Marine?
No, and being honest about it, I probably got shot at more times as a kid in St. Paul than I ever did in the Marine Corps. But I think it's all about perspective. You know, a lot of the people that I saw struggle with mental illness had never really faced adversity previous to like combat experience, which I would never let.
That's tough though. Combat experience.
100%.
Crazy, yeah.
Oh my
100%.
God.
But I also I have a hard time. I struggle a lot, because there's certain people that are completely out of their mind, and I've dealt with them. I've had an opportunity to work in the with mental health population, right? I've gone through training, critical incident training. I took classes at Metropolitan State, co-occurring disorders, right? Because I'm very fascinated by people afflicted and people in crisis, because I think that's what my job is. I gotta
why
figure
you
out
have to do your job. Yeah.
Where I have a hard time is when you make choices that cause other people to be afflicted and affected. I mean, when you victimize others, I have a hard time just explaining it away, man.
I agree.
I think the criminally insane population of the world is such a small percentage. I mean, you could be in the moment. You could make bad choices. You could be on drugs. You could be manic. You could be you could be like delusional at that point.
I think that whole criminally insane thing is a slippery slope, because I think anybody who kills somebody is fucked up.
You have to be insane to kill someone.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, so yeah, but you consider and go to that crutch with any murder defense. Say, oh yeah, this
but
guy,
I don't think you have to be.
I mean, in my mind, there's be something really wrong with you to kill
another human's life. You have to be somewhat.
I think
you're insane in my estimation, anyway.
Exactly.
But here's what
you can make bad choices in a couple seconds that dictate the change. There's a lot of kids that walk around with guns because it's cool, or they're afraid for their own safety, right? And they have a legitimate need to want to protect themselves.
Or they think they do.
And then in that moment, they could shoot, fire a gun, kill somebody, right?
I guess that doesn't
make them insane. That makes it.
Well, that's why I don't like. That's why I don't like the insanity defense. The temporary insanity defense, I think, is a bunch of shit, and I think it's a crutch. But the one area where I have sympathy is for anybody who's got any form of post-traumatic stress, because that can fuck you up. I mean, anybody.
Oh, sure.
I can't even imagine what it's like to be in combat. I'd shit myself every day.
Or watch your brother get his arm blown off. I mean, that's the crazy shit.
I got arrested for possession, and I had fucking crazy nightmares for years. I mean, woke up in the middle of the night thinking I was about to be arrested. I mean, I'd lie in bed, I'd be sound asleep, but it's almost like I'm outside of my body, watching myself sleep, and I'm hearing police at my door saying they were going to come in and take me down. I mean, for years. I mean, wake up in cold sweats. I mean, post-traumatic stress that's fucked up.
But that also plays to your socialization. It plays to your life experience. There's kids every day that come from these bad homes that are around violence, domestic violence. They see gang violence in their communities. I mean, Minnesota has poverty, but it's not poverty in compared to like California, Chicago, New Orleans. I mean, third world countries, right? El Salvador has like the most gang members in the entire world in this tiny little like war-torn country. So like everybody faces different stuff, man. I 100%.
I'm almost out of Diet Coke.
100%. Nice.
Talk about PTSD. Fuck.
100%. I acknowledged all of that stuff, but I also think that like you have to be responsible to your choices. Like
no more.
100% you do.
I got to sleep tonight.
All right. Well, let's rein it in here.
Okay.
This is why I brought you guys on, though.
Sorry.
This is like
ADD. My ADD kicked in.
I know for Jeff on Wild Wednesday, it's kind of like it's like a break for him because he can just let Tony and Scott go. Especially when you have today. Jeez, you got 3 guests. Yeah. You got those guys, and that's why I brought you guys on, because I get to basically do the same. But let's rein it back in.
Had too much
that's never a problem. So in the movie Boyhood, there's this scene that I want to get you guys' take on, because Tony, with your profession, you're obviously dealing with race, and Jeff, I'll never forget that Julius Collins show where we talked about the shooting down in Ferguson, and so I obviously know you're no racist. So there's a scene in this movie Boyhood that you guys don't even have to have seen. I can describe it enough to give you the background on it, but that people, or at least one columnist came out with and wanted to call it racist. And I'll tell you what happened, and then we'll discuss. But so this whole movie is about a kid that grows up from 6 to 18, so it's a 12-year period. And one point in this movie, his mother is just out in the yard, and there's a couple of Mexicans working on God knows what. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter. It could be mowing the lawn, whatever it was. And she walks by, and she has about a 1-minute conversation with one of them, and she goes, hey, as she's walking away, she's like, oh, hey, you're smart. You should go get an education. Do something better with yourself. Just totally not even thinking about it. Just kind of an offhand remark, and she walks away. All right, that end scene. Cut to a little later in the movie. They're at dinner. She's at dinner with her kids, and this guy comes up, and he's the manager of the restaurant. And he goes, I don't know if you remember me, but I just want to tell you that the advice you gave me made me who I am today, and now I'm assistant manager at this restaurant. I'm in school. I'm bettering myself, blah, blah, blah. And she just kind of looks at him like, oh, okay. It didn't even register to her. Now, what the columnist comes out with is saying how racist it is. It's this white privilege. It's this, she's so condescending. She can just tell him how he should live his life, and then he just goes, oh, sure, I'll do that, and it works out. And I get where that comes from, but the way I took it, and I want to see what you guys think, but the way I took it was, now, yes, there is some of that white privilege. There is some of that, maybe I think I'm better than other people because I'm white and privileged. I get that. That is out there. But the way I took it was, she was just seriously offhanded going, yeah, you are smart. Why are you just doing this? Now, he may look at his life as this is the peak. This is the only place I'll ever make it to. And she's going, no, your potential's limitless. She's actually almost being the opposite of racist. She's going, no, you can do anything. Why are you just doing this? And I think it would have been racist when you cut to the restaurant scene, where if she would have been like, oh, yeah, I take all the credit. Oh, yep, that was me. I'm the one that said that. Yep, you're the only reason you made it is because white lady over here said, here's what you should do. So, first of all, guys, do you think that just the scenes themselves, do you think that this should have been taken as racist? And do you agree with my take on it?
I think that everybody has different perspective.
Exactly.
I think you can never tell somebody what they should think, how they should feel, how they should view something, because you don't live in their world. You don't have the interactions that they do. You don't have the history. I mean, we talked about it earlier. Everybody has different experience, socialization. Everybody faces different adversities. So I think it's very relevant for there to be multiple. There's your truth, there's my truth, and then there's somewhere in the middle where the actual truth happened.
So do you think maybe? I think this might have been. And Richard Linklater, he's the director of this movie, one of my favorite directors. I think he might have been absolutely genius in the way he wrote that. I think he was going for that. I think he was going for you to go, is that subtle racism? Is that no racism? And then I think what you just said is brilliant too. If I'm Mexican and I'm at that movie, I might be going, what a fucking bitch! Like, that's bullshit. Or if I'm a white person, I might be going, oh, isn't that kind of her? Like, so again, it's just your own perspective. You can look at it as racist or not.
I think the smartest people and the smartest storytellers allow you to tell the story for yourself in your mind, or allow you to process the information, because not only do they draw you in, but they make you think, and then they make you think, am I right?
Yeah. Did I get it all?
And then you talk about it. And then, anybody that tells a story, anybody that creates conversation or creates thought with their art or with their message, I think that's the entire motivation.
That's when you nailed it, right?
Well, and why does everything have to be racism? Just because it's an interaction between members of different races. I mean, I have to admit that there have been times where I've attempted to offer encouragement to somebody, but I'm very kind of hesitant and withdrawn about it because it could come off as condescension. But if it's white to white, it's just condescension. But if it's white to a minority group,
then it's racist and condescending. Yeah.
But it's just the same exact interaction. So I mean, people can call it what they want. It just depends on how thick-skinned or confrontational somebody wants to be about something.
I think, and from my perspective, right? I grew up in St. Paul, so I just strive to have consistent interactions with everybody. Like, I never want my interactions to be different no matter who I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with the boss man, or I'm dealing with the dishwasher. I want to make sure that not only am I genuine, but then I also speak to people the way I want to be spoken to, that I give people the opportunity to not only hear what I'm trying to get across, but then also I hear what they have coming back to me. I think a lot of people dance around the issue because they have their own personal biases, but ultimately, like, the way that I strive to live my life is I want to be consistent with my interaction at all times, and I want to learn from people. I think people that are different from me will always have thoughts, ideas, perspective that I don't know about.
And I grew up with a conservative Republican father who, every time diversity was brought up, and I used to listen to Joe Souchere, and so did my dad, and I was brought up with diversity for diversity's sake is bullshit. I was always told that is a joke. And I understand what they're saying, because it's not just color of skin that makes you diverse. It's your background. It's your thought process. It's your outlook on life. That is what makes you who you are. It's not just skin color. So I get what he was saying, but I like what you're saying too, and I completely agree. And the last 15 years, I've learned nothing but that the more I interact with people that are different than me, I learn about myself and about life.
I believe social change, though, it is as hard as this might be to swallow. Any real or significant social change, it is going to be painfully slow. And if it's forced, it causes resentment, and it causes more anger, it causes more misunderstanding.
Look at the South.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying I'm no segregationist.
No, I'm
no
that
separate
happened.
but equal. But if you force something down somebody's throat, you are going to make them resentful. If a really qualified Caucasian man doesn't get a job over somebody who's more qualified than, who gets the job because if it's an affirmative action, it's a quota, whatever, that's going to create create hate and resentment and more anger. And I know it sucks to sit here and say, just be patient, the wheels grind slowly, but the only change that is real and the only change that is significant and the only change that matters happens naturally. And it's painfully slow, and they're ignorant people who are out there blocking it every step of the way that make it more painful and more slow, and it sucks. But the more you force it, I think the more you just create false interaction, false.
Yeah.
I mean, people like to look at the numbers and say, well, as this corporation that I'm the CEO of, we've got
Minnesota passive aggressive.
Yeah,
we've got Minnesota passive aggressive.
We've got 23% African American. We've got 12% Latin American, and we've got 10% Asian American employees. Well, good for you, because you're out there filling quotas and forcing it down people's throats. If this is something that starts happening naturally through the course of time, where you've got 27% African American employees because they were the best qualified people for the job at the time, and it just happened. Naturally, and it happened organically without the force. I mean, to me that's the only social change that matters or means anything at all. And I know it's easy for me to sit here and say, okay, minority groups, be patient, the wheels grind slowly, but if you want it to matter, it's got to be organic. But if you want it to mean anything, it's got to be organic.
I also think like 100%. I will always be a proponent that the only way to change the world is parenting. I mean, literally, I promise you.
Or mentoring, any kind of guidance.
Parenting or mentoring.
Yeah, an adult mentor would help.
But I always say parenting because you're laying the foundation for the life of another person. Yeah. They can go out into the world. They can seek out things that are different than them. They can learn. They can strive to be the better person. They can deal with adversity. They can know that just because you don't get your way, it doesn't mean that you get to be violent, that you get to be hateful, that you get to lash out at the world, right? You fall down, you pick yourself back up, and you identify how to make yourself better, right? And I think it all comes from parenting. And what I see, especially with like the younger generation of kids, is that they struggle when they don't have a stable environment, and when their environment at home is topsy-turvy, it spills out into their interactions and their impact on the world.
I agree. Let's take our last break. We're gonna take it back into your guys' wheelhouse. Not that, well, Jesus Christ, you guys crushed all of that, but we're gonna go in the sports vein a little bit here when we come back and finish up the Minnesota Pubcast.
The Rusty Gatenby Review is the entertaining show about entertainment from movies, music, and more. Award-winning TV guy Rusty Gatenby and his review is the podcast with the biggest cast in entertainment, part of the Alive and Social Network. You can get that Minnesota connection to Hollywood and beyond any time of the day or night simply by clicking on the RustyGatenbyReview.com. That's the RustyGatenbyReview.com, part of the Alive and Social Network. Hi, I'm Terry Daniel, and I've been a voice actor in Minneapolis for over 2 decades now. How often are you getting compliments on your voice? Now is the time to do something about it. If you're interested in getting into voiceovers, please contact me via my website at universalvoicetalent.com.
And we're back. The Minnesota Pubcast. Live with the Wild Wednesday boys. Jeff Dubay and Tony Dean are with me tonight. And we're going to bring it into our wheelhouse a little bit. I want to talk a little sports with you guys. First off, Jeff, you're the baseball guy. I definitely want to talk about this story I read today. And I'm just curious. I mean, I would love to see this actually happen if this guy could actually make it to the big leagues. But have you heard about this ambidextrous pitcher in the minors that's actually, like, it sounds like he's not going to make, I think it's Oakland A's, he's not going to necessarily make the team, but apparently he's doing well enough in spring training that they're at least talking about it. And that, to me, is fascinating.
God, I wish I was as good with my left hand as my right hand. I mean, that would just open so many possibilities.
Is that what she said?
It opens so many possibilities.
The stranger.
I mean, I've heard of guys trying to do this before. I tell you, is he naturally right or is he naturally left?
He's been, since 3 years old, his dad has taught him to kick and throw with both arms.
It's bizarre.
And he's even got the specially made glove, so mid-game, mid-batter,
Well,
he could
do you remember Jim Abbott? I mean, he would.
Well, he had the one hand.
He had one hand,
yeah,
and he would do the switch over. But this is a hard thing for me to wrap my mind around. I mean, but for one thing, it's what a 1 in 1,000 chance of ever becoming a major league pitcher to begin with. Being good enough with one hand. I mean, whether you're righty or lefty, if you're lefty, your chances go up. So you don't have to be as good because you're a rarity and you can specialize.
Right.
But to be able to throw, in the 90s with movement and keep people off balance and all this shit, and then to think you could learn to do that with another hand, and I mean, I'd like to know, like, if the stuff that he has with his right hand, does he have the same stuff with his left hand?
Well,
is he a power pitcher one way and kind of a crafty junk baller the other way? I mean, it's
in the story I read.
I can't even wrap my mind around.
The umpires are even talking about. They were saying, okay, when he switches from right to left, we'll see a drop off. We'll see a difference in stuff. No, he's throwing it both ways. He's got equal power.
Then this
he's
has
got
merit.
equal movement. That's what I'm saying. That's why I would never even bring this up. But that sounds interesting.
Are they saying it's major league stuff though? I mean,
but they're saying it's on the verge. And this guy's been in the minor leagues for 7 years. So I mean, it's a little bit of a grain of salt. But that's what I mean. The only reason I even saw this story was because he's apparently getting to where it's at least talked about.
And some guys. Come up trying to switch hit, for the same reason this guy's trying to switch pitch or whatever you call it. And some guys give it up because it's so hard to do. I mean, I can't imagine being able to hit at a major league level right-handed, let alone then learning it, left-handed. And I talked to Roy Smalley about this, when I was on 1500 a couple years ago with Judd Zolgad. I asked Roy, I said, I see guys all the time. I mean, for the most part, when you see a switch hitter in Major League Baseball, he's a punch and Judy guy. He's a slap hitter. He's a single. I mean, the guys like Eddie Murray who come up with power from both sides. Those are rare. Roy Smalley, power from both sides. Those are rare. And I see a guy like who's a middle infielder, a utility guy. He'll hit like 240 from both sides of the plate.
Denny
like
Hocking.
Nick Puto. Denny Hocking, or was Puto just a lefty? Denny Hocking, a good example. And I think to myself, I said, well, Roy, what good is it to be mediocre from two sides of the plate? Why not just become a really good hitter from one side? And he said, Jeff, that's just not how it works. It's just no matter how much it looks like he struggled from both sides, if you can do it from both sides, you do it from both sides.
Yeah.
So I mean, this guy, if he's what you say, he'll get a look.
And switch hitting is such a fascinating point into the game, and even just playing MLB on PlayStation 3, you put in a right-handed pitcher and then a fucker switches over to the other side anyway because you didn't realize he's a switch hitter. Like that makes a huge impact in baseball. But to be able to have the same guy stay on the mound and face a righty and a lefty like the way you want them to, that would, if anybody could actually bring this to the major league level, it would change pitching forever. If anybody could, I guess it would change if more than one person could ever do it.
I certainly think that there's guys that make it to the major leagues because they just work their ass off, and they this gentleman has some adversity and he's using it to hone his talents and get the most out of his talents. I grew up in St. Paul around Joe Mauer, and Joe Mauer was just a machine. Like, we could only beat him in basketball. That was the only sport we could beat him in. And I played for Central, and we beat him. In baseball, he literally had one foul ball his entire high school career.
He never struck out. Or something.
I mean, he had one foul ball, and people that are just so gifted, they're destined for it. That's why I was like, I need to get a job. I'm never gonna make it, right?
Matt Burke used to always joke with us about how he held Sam Jacobs into 35 one night.
Yeah,
Green against Park.
No doubt. And I grew up around Khalid El-Amin and Jake Cuppy. And Jake Cuppy was a big body, Minnetonka, freckles, just the biggest kid, biggest sweetheart, and you knew that he is just special gifted, just like Khalid El-Amin was special gifted. Different body sizes.
I mean, you don't mean quirky gifted. I mean, you mean gifted.
Like gifted, talented athletes.
Yeah.
And
nothing against corky.
Corky gifted.
That's aggressive.
What the hell?
I'm old enough to know that reference. I'm old enough to know that reference. And so you also get guys that are just going to work their ass off. And I think this guy, if he's working his ass off every day at the minor league level, he should get a shot.
All right, we cannot finish on a lighter note than this. I have to bring it. This is
corky gifted.
Well, that was not the lightest. No. So, as we always like to follow, entertainment.
You have to control the narrative.
That's what I'm trying to get you out of the fucking gutter.
I'm sorry.
When we come on your podcast, you have to control the narrative.
No, I let you guys take it to the gutter. I love it. I appreciate it, in fact. But okay, so I just saw this today, and I figured Jeff would hate this as much as I did, if not more.
Oh, great.
There's going to be a fucking Pee Wee Herman movie coming out.
Another
one?
A
new Pee Wee Herman movie. He's 62 years old.
Is he really?
Yes. How is this possible? I mean, I know we've run out of ideas. Obviously, everything's a remake. But Pee-wee?
I'll tell you this. I had never heard of him. I'm watching Letterman. It's like 1982. I mean, I'm watching Letterman.
Oh, when I was born.
And this guy comes on and sits down next to Letterman, in folding chairs with like a backdrop behind him, and he pretends he's driving. He's like, and he's doing all the shit. And I'm like laughing my ass off, thinking this guy's amazing. And by the end of the segment, I'm like, kill this guy, put a bullet in my head. And then the movie came out, and it's like, are you kidding? I couldn't sit through 2 minutes of that. It's like he's funny for 5 minutes, and then you want him dead.
And I was a fan of Pee-wee's Big Adventure because I was 13.
And by that, you mean by that you mean the night he got arrested masturbating?
Proud of you.
That was the sequel.
The Stranger.
That was the other.
That could have been at the Faust.
That was his other
Big
Big
Adventure. Right
Adventure.
up at the Faust, right up here.
They printed his left hand.
God, when did they tear down the Faust?
Oh, I don't know what that is.
And there was a porno theater on Dale and University.
There was a porno theater.
I wasn't.
Yes, a widescreen.
I didn't know that either.
Like
We are too young.
I wasn't
for
old
that.
enough.
Are you kidding me?
I would have snuck a peek. I snuck a peek in Leland Norris. You know what Leland Norris was?
No.
That was like a massage on Snelling Avenue.
Oh yeah, I remember Leland Norris.
Right by Hamlin.
I remember driving by Leland Norris. I think it was called the Faust. It was a movie theater where you went in and sat in seats in a theater and watched porn on a big screen.
What a different world we live in.
But that's what's his face.
Oh,
Pee-wee
my
got
God.
busted in.
You know, I don't want to just be like the other end of the spectrum and confrontational, but I would actually rather watch a Pee Wee Herman movie than any new like Batman 7 or like Spider-Man 14. Like I just don't want any more like superhero movies.
I'm sick of movies.
So
they're out of ideas. They ran out of ideas years ago.
Which is a great point because the movie is kind of the dinosaur, and the TV series you can develop characters.
Yeah,
you can.
I'm telling you,
Well, TV has become better than movies now.
Yes.
I'm telling you.
But Birdman and Boyhood this year, guys, were two movies that were unlike anything I've ever seen.
You know what? I have Birdman. I have Birdman at the house. I haven't done it. I haven't watched it yet. The other one too. The Year of Violence or whatever that one.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
Terrible.
Oh,
but have you?
Terrible.
I don't think I've enjoyed anything more than sitting down and watching. Not in one. I don't do these marathons. I mean, I take time. But sitting down with Netflix and going through Breaking Bad,
yes.
Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
No, I'm on Better Call Saul right now.
Yes.
Not Game of Thrones. House of Cards. House of Cards.
Yep.
The Kevin Spacey.
Although Game of Thrones is amazing.
Game of Thrones is awesome too.
If you're a nerd.
I mean, have you done it?
Nerdy
You haven't
show,
done
man.
it.
Nope.
You haven't done it.
All right, fine.
Dude. You'll stay up. You'll stay up for days.
But do the math. Do the math on like Sons of Anarchy. 7 seasons, 44 minutes per episode. Without commercials. Times 20 episodes times 7 seasons. I mean, you're watching like a 3-day movie.
It's a lot of movies.
It's like a 3-day long movie, and it's fucking awesome.
If you do Game
Sons
of Thrones,
Anarchy rules.
If you do Game of Thrones, you won't sleep for a week.
I'm losing my voice.
You won't sleep for a week.
In what way?
It's the dirtiest.
It's
the
so
dirtiest
good.
one.
Is it on Netflix?
Oh, it's
no, it's
unbelievable.
HBO.
It's HBO, but seek it out. I'm saying if you
maybe.
if you start Game of Thrones,
right.
you'll watch it start. You won't sleep.
I'll do it on Xfinity
It's a great-
on demand or
I'm
something.
saying,
Great
better than Breaking Bad and Sons of Anarchy, because those are the two greatest dramas ever.
No.
Two greatest dramas.
The Wire is better than.
I've never seen The Wire.
I would
The
say-
Wire is
I would
way
say-
better.
I've got to find The Wire.
The
Everyone loves
The Wire is my number one.
Yes,
I love it.
Breaking Bad to me just barely beat it, but it was so close.
And for me, it doesn't. But I understand the perspective.
Have you ever seen the movie Grand Rapids? When they're it's who's the guy? Who's the nerdy guy?
Are they at the hotel?
No, yes,
It's Cedar Rapids or something.
Cedar Rapids.
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
I've heard of that.
yeah,
Never
Cedar
seen it.
Rapids. Cedar
Genius.
Rapids. It's
Genius.
hilarious. And the black guy does the thing from The Wire to get
Yes.
him out of the jam at the party.
Yes.
We're getting a
Well,
little
now I
smart.
have to see.
Cedar Rapids.
Gotta see that.
Cedar Rapids so underrated.
It's the guy from The Office, the nerdy guy from The Office.
And it's like
the
a
white
conference.
guy. The white guy.
The guy who's got his own crime show now, or
Steve
whatever?
Carell. Steve
No,
Carell.
no. It's the
Oh.
guy
They got
who's
the glasses,
in. No,
right?
it's the guy who's in The Hangover, who loses a tooth in The Hangover.
Oh,
Not Sudeikis. What's his name? God damn it.
I know you're talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's who's
now,
in
too.
Cedar
Yeah,
Rapids.
okay.
And he's
okay.
and he sees at this. He winds up at this party where they're smoking crack and meth, like at this just white trash place in Iowa.
It's an insurance conference
Yes,
in a hotel
yes.
in
And
like a Holiday Inn.
and then this nerdy black insurance salesman guy comes in and does this badass bit, and they get out into the van. He goes, "Yeah, I'm an enthusiast of The Wire," because that's what he was doing. He's like doing a guy from The Wire to scare all these
and you
these
haven't
meth
even
heads.
and you haven't
even
get him out
you've
of
never even seen The Wire, so you don't even know how good it is.
I know it's good, but you don't know how good it is.
He's like this really quiet, unassuming African-American guy, and then they're in this horrible jam in this meth house in Cedar Rapids, and they're trying to get out of this jam, and he walks in and just goes badass on everybody, and then he gets back out and goes, yes, I'm an enthusiast of The Wire. He's totally back in character. It's hilarious.
I have to see that. Well, guys, Jesus. That's
God
how
it's
fast
over. I need
the
a
second
shower.
hour flies by. Yeah, you guys just did 2 hours. So.
Where in the world is Molly Burke?
Molly Burke is in Arizona. We will have her by phone tomorrow, so you will get your Molly fix, and then she'll be back with me next week in the old studio, the Alive and Social studios. AliveandSocial.com, JeffDubay.com to get his show, MinnesotaPubcast.com. You, of course, know about that. Suhan Unfiltered to get his, and, like I said, Alive and Social to get all the other info on all of the shows. Lots going on, more and more added every week. We'll see you next week. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks, guys.